That was quite a climb, but there are a lot of steep, wind-eroded dunes around just like this one. They indicate that our beaches are in trouble. You know, we're lucky here in Queensland, an idyllic climate and beautiful sandy beaches stretching from one end of the state to the other.
But unless we take immediate steps to look after them and educate the community in their proper care, these beaches could be ruined.
And you know, I'd like to think that our beaches will survive to be enjoyed by generations to come. This particular sand dune has been badly damaged by wind erosion. As you can see, there's no vegetation to trap the sand and stop it from being blown inland. And once it is blown inland, it can be lost from our beaches forever.
A stable frontal sand dune, one with enough vegetation to trap and hold loose sand, is essential in reducing the beach erosion caused by heavy storms. These protective frontal dunes consist of wind-blown sand. They're formed by sand being blown from the dry parts of the beach to where it can be trapped by established vegetation. This vegetation is also important in cutting down the force of the wind at ground level, again helping to stop the sand being blown away. As the vegetation grows and extends towards the beach, it's able to trap even more sand over a wider area, which grows in height and eventually forms a frontal dune. During storms, high winds whip up the waves, which carry beach sand out to sea and may start to undermine the frontal dune. It is at this stage we see the importance of vegetated frontal dunes. The loose sand, trapped by the vegetation, slumps back onto the eroding beach, effectively slowing down the rate of wave-related coastline recession. While this does result in some erosion of the vegetated frontal dune, as long as part of it remains, the continued existence of a sandy beach is usually assured.
Under normal weather conditions, the waves bring the sand back into the beach, from where it blows inland to be captured by the vegetation, thus rebuilding the frontal dunes. So you can see the importance of well-established dune vegetation in helping to protect our beaches.
If there are no plants to trap the sand and stop it blowing away, the dune can't rebuild and the beach loses this very important protective buffer.
Realizing the need for scientific research into ways of preventing future erosion of our beaches, the Queensland Beach Protection Authority established the Sand Dune Research Station here on South Stradbroke Island. The site originally consisted of bare, wind-eroded dunes. The natural vegetation had been destroyed by more than 60 years of beef cattle grazing.
The station is located on 55 hectares of sand dunes on the eastern side of the island. The site chosen provided an open coastal area large enough to enable field trials associated with sand dune research to be established and studied over a period of time. Initial trial work involved sand stabilization and dune rebuilding methods, with later trials concentrating on plant nutrition and man's impact on the dune system. Results from these trials have been put into practice on the research station, making it a model for the study of sand dune management. Also located at the research station are an administration centre, a weather recording station, a clearly defined walking track and a plant nursery. The plant nursery was established primarily to provide material for research purposes. Each year, about 12,000 seedling trees, produced in excess of research needs, are made available to coastal local authorities for individual dune planting projects. The nursery consists of seed germination beds, shade houses, and outside benches where seedlings are hardened.
Seedlings are transplanted from seed beds into tubes when they're about 5 centimetres high, and then transferred to the shade house for about 3 weeks. The 50% light conditions here in the shade house allow the seedlings to become strong enough to be moved to outside benches, where they're hardened by being exposed to full light and less frequent waterings. After 3 to 6 months, most seedlings are ready to be planted out onto exposed sand dunes.
To provide an ongoing seed supply for the nursery, seed must be collected and stored so that it's available when required. Newly ripened seed is collected only from mature, healthy trees, separated from dirt and trash, treated with fungicides and insecticides, and then stored in labelled airtight containers. The date of harvest, the species, and the weight of the seed are all recorded so that seed stock and the usefulness of remaining seeds can be determined. The weather station provides information on rainfall, temperature, evaporation, and humidity, all of which is used to assist researchers in planning future experiments as well as in the interpretation of trial results.
However, the main function of the Sand Dune Research Station is to carry out research into sand dune management. Initial studies by the Beach Protection Authority showed that extensive research was required into 5 major areas if improved methods for the control of wind erosion on coastal dunes were to be developed.
The critical areas selected for research were plant species evaluation, the establishment of vegetation, plant nutrition, dune rebuilding, and the effects of the impact of vehicles, pedestrians, grazing cattle, and burning on coastal sand dunes. Let's have a closer look at each of the critical areas being studied. Dune vegetation is vital to the original formation and continued stability of coastal sand dunes. However, the coastal environment is too harsh for the proper development of most plants, and only those capable of withstanding strong winds, salt spray, sand blast, and sand inundation are able to establish themselves and successfully stabilize bare sand dunes. If we are to successfully preserve these coastal sand dunes, it's vital that we gain a proper understanding of just which plants are suitable for use in dune stabilization projects.
In order to determine the plants most suitable for growing on coastal dunes in Queensland, researchers have carried out trials with a selection of both native and exotic species. Plants have been evaluated on their ability to thrive under these adverse conditions, to protect the dunes against wind erosion, and also to trap wind-blown sand. In all trials into suitable ground cover plants undertaken here at the Sand Dune Research Station, sand spinifex grass was found to be superior in terms of growth, vigor, and persistence.
In fact, this grass is considered to be irreplaceable in the stabilization of dunes in exposed areas. Because of its importance as a sand stabilizer, trials were carried out to find out more about this species. It was found that sand spinifex can be established from seed, sprigs, and stolon tip cuttings. However, sprigs and stolons grew faster, and stolons produced more seed in the first few years than plants grown from seed.
Horsetail sheoak is another species found to grow naturally on Queensland's frontal dunes. Seedlings grew well here on South Stradbroke Island in the initial trial plots, and further studies found it to be equally successful in other coastal dune areas in Queensland.
Other plant species shown to have a role in stabilizing coastal sand dunes are beech vigna, coast dune lovegrass, coastal banksia, and coastal tea tree. So, as we've seen, the early work carried out here identified those species most suitable for the stabilization of bare sand areas, as well as for the maintenance and repair of existing vegetated dune areas. The next step was to find a way to provide optimum growing conditions for the selected species. Wind moving strongly over the surface of the sand in which plants are to be established has a number of effects, most of them detrimental to the newly established vegetation. It can result in seedlings being sandblasted by wind-driven sand, or the sand can cover the struggling new plants, or the sand can simply be blown away, exposing the roots and allowing the plants to fall over.
In order to prevent young seedlings, or indeed an already established sparse ground cover suffering this type of wind-related damage, 2 approaches were looked at. The first was a way in which the sand could be kept in place so it wouldn't just blow away. The second was to find an efficient method of reducing the speed of the wind at ground level so that it would no longer be strong enough to pick up the surface sand and blow it away from the roots of the plants.
Tests showed that brush matting was not only effective in keeping sand fixed in place, but also reduced the wind at ground level to a speed which did not damage the young plants. Brush matting consists of a layer of branches or cuttings from trees or shrubs spread evenly over the surface of the sand. A diluted bitumen emulsion used as a sand fixer is also effective in preventing wind erosion, but often reduces the number of plants established because it tends to prevent the seedlings from reaching the surface.
The next problem to be addressed by researchers was that of providing sufficient nutrients to establish strong young plants in the shortest possible time. The soils found in coastal sand dunes are low in plant food, consisting as they do mainly of silica, except in those areas where there's a concentration of shell or coral fragments. This is pure sand, except for the odd fragment of shell and perhaps a bit of broken down plant material.
Sufficient amounts of nutrients in the proper balance are essential to the rapid growth and subsequent strength of all plant life. In order to determine the nutrient requirements of a range of plant species commonly found on coastal dunes, a series of fertilizer trials were carried out. The results from experiments on sand spinifex grass, coastal sheoak, banksia, and coastal tea tree showed that generally the addition of a nitrogen-based fertilizer improves the growth rate. Fertilizers containing phosphorus and potassium also assist in some cases. Nurse or cover crops such as millet or cereal rye are often planted to provide ground cover quickly, and trials showed that the addition of fertilizer was essential for optimum growth of both these species. Where dune systems have been damaged during cyclones or where wind erosion has leveled and flattened dunes, it may be necessary to rebuild dunes to restore a suitable protective barrier. As we said earlier, brush matting laid in strips is the most effective and practical method of trapping wind-blown sand and rebuilding dunes. However, sand-trapping fences such as these can be made of brush, timber slats or plastic mesh and can be used as an effective alternative when brush matting is unavailable. Parallel fences have also been efficient in the formation of broader-based dunes. More than 80% of Queensland's population lives within 75 kilometres of the coast. As both the resident population and number of tourists increases, so does the pressure on our beaches and dunes. Dune vegetation is easily damaged, even totally destroyed by uncontrolled vehicle traffic, pedestrians, grazing animals, and burning. Once dune vegetation has been destroyed, there's nothing to stop the wind erosion. Trials have been carried out here to determine the extent of damage caused by vehicles, pedestrians, grazing cattle, and burning to dune vegetation. The recovery rate of dune areas after such impacts has also been monitored. The authority has applied the results of its research to stabilising and revegetating dunes on South Stradbroke Island and at trial areas elsewhere along the Queensland coastline. Visitors are welcome at the research station, and arrangements can be made by contacting the officer in charge of the station or contacting the Beach Protection Authority's Brisbane office. This walking track has been installed to guide visitors through those areas of the station where sand dune management techniques have been applied so that they can see for themselves the effectiveness of the techniques developed. Visitors are also able to see a wide range of dune protection works such as beach access tracks and pedestrian control fences and barriers. As a result of its sand dune research, the authority is in a sound position to provide practical advice on dune management problems to coastal local authorities, developers, and other concerned parties. Research results are published in report form and are included in the various educational publications produced by the authority. The research program is continuing, and the results of both current and proposed trials will add to the knowledge already gained. The work carried out at the Beach Protection Authority's Sand Dune Research Station is helping to further improve the standard of coastal dune management throughout Queensland and to ensure that generations to come can walk along wide sandy beaches just like this one.